over 60 and dealing with constipation that just won't quit? No matter how much fiber you eat or how much water you drink, nothing seems to work. You've tried everything your doctor suggested and still nothing changes. If this sounds like you, there's one specific nutritional deficiency that most doctors never even mention. And once you understand it, so much starts to make sense. There's one nutritional deficiency behind a huge number of constipation cases in older adults. Research from the National Institutes of Health and reviews out of Harvard Medical School have been quietly documenting this exact connection for years, yet almost nobody talks about it at the doctor's office. Maybe you've already tried the usual advice: more fiber, more water, maybe a fiber supplement or a store-bought probiotic designed to restore gut bacteria. And maybe none of it really worked. Or it worked for a week, and then your body went right back to being stuck and uncomfortable. If that sounds familiar, stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why your gut has slowed down. More importantly, you'll know what you can actually do about it starting today. Let me start with a couple of facts that might genuinely surprise you. You have more nerves living inside your gut than you have running through your entire spinal column. That's not an exaggeration. That's not a typo. Your digestive system is essentially wired like a second brain, complete with its own network of nerve cells, constantly sending and receiving signals all day long and all night long. Connecting that second brain to your first brain is a long nerve called the vagus nerve. It runs directly between your brain and your gut. And it's bidirectional, which means messages travel both up and down that highway constantly, day and night, whether you're aware of it or not. Your brain talks to your gut, or gut talks back to your brain. This communication never stops. Here's why this becomes so important once you cross into your 50s, 60s, and beyond. As we age, our bodies quietly become less efficient at absorbing certain nutrients. Stomach acid naturally starts to decline with every year that passes. Our diets often shift towards softer, easier to chew foods that may be gentler on aging teeth and gums. But they're also far lower in the nutrients our nervous system actually depends on to function well. That combination, slowly and silently, sets the stage for a deficiency that almost nobody sees coming, because it doesn't show up the way people expect a vitamin problem to look. There's no dramatic bruising, no obvious rash, no textbook warning sign in the medical books. Instead, it shows up quietly, as your gut simply refusing to move the way it used to, month after month, until it feels completely normal to be uncomfortable. That hidden piece, the one connecting nerves, aging, and digestion, is exactly where we're headed next. Understanding this connection changed how I think about constipation completely. The vagus nerve connects into the lower part of your brain called the brainstem. Inside that brainstem sits the control center of something called the autonomic nervous system. This is the system that runs completely on autopilot, controlling your heartbeat, your breathing, and your digestion, all without you ever having to think about it. Your heart beats without you consciously making it beat. Your lungs breathe without you telling them to breathe. Your stomach digests without you consciously digesting. It all happens automatically. That entire system is extremely vulnerable to a deficiency in thiamine, which is vitamin B1. When you don't have enough thiamine circulating through your body, things start going haywire in that autonomic system. Everything tied to nerve signaling starts struggling, and that includes the very nerves that control the smooth muscle lining your gut. That smooth muscle is responsible for something called peristalsis. It's the slow, rhythmic, wave-like squeezing motion that pushes waste steadily through your body. Picture a wave moving down your intestines. That's peristalsis. It's the mechanism that actually moves things along. When peristalsis stops working, nothing moves. Everything just sits there. And here's the thing. Most people don't realize this. Constipation isn't simply a lack of fiber. It's a failure of peristalsis. the muscle itself simply isn't pumping the way it should anymore. So everything just sits there, stagnant, going absolutely nowhere, no matter how much water or fiber you throw at it. When thiamine gets too low, that peristalsis mechanism breaks down. The smooth muscle stops receiving the signals it needs to contract. The waves stop happening, and waste just stays put inside your intestines. This is why people can add more and more fiber, and nothing improves. The problem isn't fiber. The problem is the nerves telling the muscles to move. And those nerves need thiamine to work properly. Without enough B1, the vagus nerve can no longer properly use a chemical messenger called acetylcholine. Acetylcholine functions almost like a hormone inside your nervous system, carrying the signal that tells your gut muscles to contract and move things along. Think of acetylcholine as the messenger. It travels from your brain down that vagus nerve highway to your gut. When it arrives at the muscle cells, it tells them to squeeze. It tells them to contract. That contraction creates the wave of peristalsis. And the acetylcholine absolutely depends on vitamin B1 to be produced and used correctly. No B1, no acetylcholine. No acetylcholine, no muscle contractions. No contractions, no movement. That's the chain that breaks when thiamine gets too low. Picture the normal digestive process for a moment, the way it's supposed to work. You eat food. Your stomach produces acid to break down protein and create an environment hostile to harmful pathogens that might make you sick. Then that food travels down into a small pouch called the gallbladder. The gallbladder releases bile to help digest fats. The pancreas contributes a whole set of enzymes to further break everything down into usable nutrients. An enormous 90% of your total digestion actually happens inside the small intestine. Whatever is left over moves into the large intestine, where fiber and other undigested material gets processed before finally leaving the body. This entire system is beautifully coordinated and sophisticated. When someone develops constipation from low thiamine, this entire chain, this whole beautifully coordinated system, backs up all at once. And that's usually when people start reaching for probiotics or digestive enzymes or medications like laxatives. Sometimes gentler herbal versions instead. There's nothing inherently wrong with using a gentle laxative occasionally when you truly need it. But if you find yourself needing one over and over and over again, week after week, that's a very clear sign you haven't actually found the real problem underneath it all. You've been treating the symptom while the root cause keeps quietly running the show. This matters more than most people realize, because constipation itself carries real, tangible danger. Sometimes more risk than the mild discomfort of occasionally using a gentle laxative. When waste sits inside the body far too long, it can lead to something called auto-intoxication. That's when toxins that should have already left your system start recirculating back through your bloodstream instead. Your body starts reabsorbing waste products. That's bad. That's dangerous. Let's dig even deeper into why thiamine sits so firmly at the center of all this. A thiamine deficiency doesn't just slow down peristalsis. It also directly suppresses hydrochloric acid production in your stomach. That's the very acid your body needs to properly break down protein. Undigested protein sitting in your gut can, on its own, contribute to constipation and bloating. More stuff that won't move. That same stomach acid is also essential for killing off unwanted microbes before they travel further down your digestive tract. So when that acid runs too low, you become far more vulnerable to something called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO. That's when bacteria that should stay confined to your large intestine start creeping upward into your small intestine instead. This causes gas, bloating, and even more constipation. One problem leads to more problems. Low thiamine also quietly slows down gastric motility. That means the movement of your stomach itself, not just your intestines further down the line. A more advanced version of this slowdown is called gastroparesis. That's where digestion becomes painfully sluggish throughout the entire system. Sometimes people feel uncomfortably full for hours after even a small meal. They can barely eat. Their energy crashes. Gastroparesis is frequently linked to diabetes, and diabetes itself is driven largely by high sugar and refined carbohydrate intake. That's exactly the same foods: white bread, pasta, cereal, crackers, biscuits, pancakes, that quietly deplete thiamine levels in the first place. Follow this chain closely because it matters. You eat a lot of refined carbohydrates. That raises your risk of developing diabetes. Diabetes creates a thiamine deficiency. That deficiency leads straight into gastroparesis. Then a whole cascade of other nervous system problems ripple outward from there. This is also part of why so many people living with diabetes eventually develop peripheral neuropathy. That's the numb, burning, painful sensation in their feet and hands. That's because thiamine deficiency damages nerves at multiple levels throughout the entire body, not only in the gut, but everywhere your nervous system reaches. There's one more piece worth understanding before we move on. A thiamine deficiency can also suppress your pancreatic enzyme output. Remember, 90% of your digestion depends heavily on those enzymes doing their job properly inside the small intestine. Without enough enzymes, food doesn't break down. Nutrients don't get absorbed. Everything backs up. Low thiamine also contributes to a condition called biliary dyskinesia. That simply means your gallbladder has become sluggish and slow to respond. It's not necessarily that you're producing too little bile. It's that the muscular tissue responsible for contracting and releasing that bile at the right moment isn't doing its job efficiently anymore. Less bile released at the right time means less help breaking down fat. And once again, that traces right back to insufficient thiamine sitting quietly at the root of it all. When you step back and look at the full picture, nerve signaling, stomach acid production, gastric motility, pancreatic enzyme output, gallbladder function, the common thread running through every single one of these digestive breakdowns is a lack of thiamine. That's a genuinely powerful realization once it clicks, because it means chasing symptom after symptom with a different supplement for each one might be completely missing the actual root cause hiding underneath it all. So why are so many people over 50 running low on thiamine in the first place? It's not usually because they're eating some bizarre restrictive diet. It's much sneakier than that. A few very common everyday things quietly drain thiamine out of the body as we get older, and almost nobody connects them to digestion. Certain blood pressure medications, particularly diuretics, are extremely common after 50. These medications cause the body to flush out extra fluid, and unfortunately, water-soluble vitamins like thiamine get flushed right along with it. You're peeing out your B1 every single day. Metformin, one of the most widely prescribed medications for managing blood sugar, has been shown in research to interfere with thiamine absorption over time. The medication literally prevents your body from absorbing B1 from food. And then there's alcohol. Even moderate occasional drinking is known to significantly impair the body's ability to absorb and properly utilize thiamine. That's actually one of the core reasons long-term heavy drinkers develop severe neurological damage. It traces directly back to B1 deficiency. On top of all of that, simply getting older naturally reduces the efficiency of nutrient absorption happening inside your gut lining itself. So even someone eating a reasonably healthy diet can still end up running low, purely because their body isn't pulling nutrients out of food as effectively as it once did in their 30s or 40s. Your gut gets worse at absorbing things. Layer any one of these factors, a diuretic, a blood sugar medication, an occasional glass of wine, or simply the natural slowdown of aging, on top of a diet already leaning toward refined carbohydrates, and you have the perfect quiet setup for exactly the kind of thiamine deficiency we've been talking about this entire video. Most people don't realize they have 3 or 4 of these risk factors all happening at the same time. Once you see it laid out this way, it stops feeling like some rare or unusual problem. It starts looking like something that could very easily be happening to millions of people right now, without a single one of them realizing it. They just think they're getting old. They think their digestion is supposed to be bad now. They accept it. Now let's talk about how to actually put this information to use in real life, because understanding the why only matters if it leads to something you can actually do. If you're considering adding a thiamine-focused approach to your daily routine, food sources matter far more than most people think. Nutritional yeast, sunflower seeds, pork, lentils, black beans, peas, and whole grains like brown rice all naturally contain meaningful amounts of thiamine. Pairing these foods with a source of magnesium tends to work particularly well. Magnesium helps activate thiamine inside your cells. So something as simple as sunflower seeds paired with a handful of pumpkin seeds, or lentils cooked alongside leafy greens, can be a genuinely smart combination to build into your week. You're not just adding thiamine, you're adding magnesium at the same time to help your body use it. One of the biggest mistakes people make is relying entirely on heavily processed multivitamins that use cheap, synthetic, poorly absorbed forms of B1. They think they're covering their bases. In reality, their body barely absorbs any meaningful amount of it. They're taking a supplement that doesn't actually work. Another common mistake is assuming that piling on more fiber alone will fix sluggish digestion. In reality, adding fiber on top of already impaired nerve signaling can sometimes make bloating and discomfort noticeably worse instead of better, because the underlying muscle still isn't getting the signal to move. You're adding bulk to a system that can't move bulk. When choosing a thiamine source, whether through food or a supplement, look for natural, whole food-derived options rather than synthetic, lab-manufactured versions. Your body tends to recognize and utilize natural thiamine far more efficiently than its synthetic counterpart. Real food sources will work better than a synthetic vitamin from a factory. Now, I do want to be honest with you. This approach isn't necessarily right for absolutely everyone in every situation. People with certain kidney conditions or those currently taking specific prescription medications should always check with their doctor before making significant changes to their supplement routine. Individual health situations genuinely do vary quite a bit from person to person. And if you ever experience severe abdominal pain, blood in your stool, sudden major changes in your bowel habits, or unexplained weight loss, please don't try to self-treat your way through it. Get that checked out by a medical professional right away. Those particular symptoms can sometimes point to something more serious that needs proper, immediate attention. No amount of vitamin B1 should ever replace that. It helps to know who tends to benefit the most from paying closer attention to their thiamine intake. If you're someone who regularly eats a lot of white bread, white rice, pasta, or packaged snack foods, you're at risk. If you're currently taking a diuretic or metformin, you're losing thiamine constantly. If you enjoy even a moderate amount of alcohol on a regular basis, your body can't absorb B1 properly. Or if you simply noticed your digestion has slowed down gradually over the past several years without any other obvious explanation, you likely fall into the group that stands to gain the most from addressing this directly. On the other hand, if your diet is already rich in whole grains, legumes, and nutrient-dense foods, and your digestion has always worked reasonably well, this might be a smaller piece of your overall picture. That's perfectly okay too. The goal here was never to convince you that every single case of constipation traces back to one single vitamin. The goal is to make sure this particular piece, the one almost nobody talks about, doesn't stay invisible to you the way it stays invisible to so many people. Your doctor probably never had time to explain the vagus nerve, the enteric nervous system, or the surprisingly deep relationship between thiamine and everyday digestion during a rushed 15-minute appointment. When it comes to timing and approach, Consistency tends to matter far more than chasing any single perfect number or magic dose. Thiamine is a water-soluble vitamin, which means your body doesn't store large reserves of it, the way it does with some other nutrients, like vitamin D or B12. So a steady daily intake, through food, and if needed, a quality natural supplement, tends to be far more effective over time than sporadic occasional large doses taken here and there. Many people find that taking their thiamine earlier in the day, alongside a meal, helps meaningfully with both absorption and how efficiently the body puts it to use throughout the rest of the day. Building this into a consistent daily habit, rather than treating it as an occasional afterthought you remember once a week, is really what allows your nervous system and your gut to slowly, gradually recalibrate over time. This isn't something that happens overnight. Patience really is part of the process here. But many people do start noticing gradual, encouraging improvements in regularity within just a matter of weeks once their intake becomes truly consistent. One of my patients, a woman in her early 60s, told me she basically accepted feeling bloated and backed up as just part of getting older. She'd tried 3 different fiber supplements. She'd cut out dairy completely. She'd added a walk after dinner every single night. Nothing really moved the needle in any lasting way. If this video helped connect some dots for you today, please give it a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos just like this one. Because there's so much more to understand about thiamine and just how deeply it affects nearly every system in your body. The connections go far deeper than most people realize. Your digestion isn't just about fiber and water. It's about your nervous system working properly at every single level.